Hey there. Welcome to the Dungeon Mester, the show where I'm a mess and so can you. Today I'm going to be painting these little beauties right here. These are my Dohar miniatures that I got from My Mini Factory. They're made by Cast and Play, and we're going to paint them all kinds of colorful colors. So I've got my Army Painter War Paints. I'm going to be using Pixie Pink on this guy. The Dohar are like colorful little um, penguin people, I guess. And I don't usually paint in really bright colors, but these guys seem to warrant it. So I've got my Pixie Pink out for this guy. Each color is behind the Dohar that's going to be painted that color. I don't know if I'm saying Dohar correctly or not, but so I've already got my paints shaken up and mixed in with my thinner medium. Thinner paint goes on better. And I'm going to just go ahead and start putting it on here. So these guys have a nice little line between their, I guess the outer color and their bellies slash faces, which is going to be white. And I always struggle with those little lines because I don't know which paint should go in there and which paint should not. I guess I kind of figure it out as we go. This guy's also holding a fish. I am starting with the easier one. He doesn't have any clothes on. This is the naked Dohar. You'll notice that my minis are primed. If you watched the last video, they were just plain gray, and now you can see that there's some, it's lighter on the top, and they're darker underneath. And that's because I did some zenithal highlighting, zenithal priming, and I sprayed each miniature in black, and then completely in black, and then I came back with a white primer and just hit it from the top with the white. And that gives it the effect of light coming down from above. And if your paint is thin, like this, you can see there's the pink shows up real bright there, but underneath it's still kind of a darker color. And that's what we want. It gives the illusion of shadow, light and shadow. So there can be a temptation on that dark stuff because the black does show through. It can be tempting to want to go over it until that pink is real heavy, but you don't want that. You want the pink to be evenly distributed. But if there's that black showing through underneath, that's actually okay because it's in shadow. And then the white is actually showing through on top, but you don't notice it so much because it doesn't override the pink. He's also holding a fish, so I am going to paint that fish, and I've got my colors picked out for that. I'm going to be using this green, this darker blue, and this silver back here. These colors are my fish colors. I guess the ones right here. So with this tiny brush, kind of going over these edges first, I think. And then I can come back with a thicker brush to do the rest. I'm not going to worry about mistakes, especially on the underside. I just totally screwed up his belly. Just don't care right now. I can go over that with white later. I'm doing these edges like right up against the line first. Kind of get that blocked out. And then I can come back with a thicker brush, do the rest of it. He's got little feet down there. I've got a kind of a muted yellow that I'm going to use for the beaks and the feet. And That's going to need to be a different yellow than I use on the yellow Doar because I want it to be different. If his feathers or his plumage or whatever is a bright yellow, I don't want it to be exactly the same as his feet, his beak. So I picked out a little bit different yellow. If you don't have a bunch of different versions of the same colors, you can make your own. You can mix these paints together. And if you're using a wet palette like this one, your paints will stay, after you mix them, your paints will stay fresh on the palette to be used later. You don't have to worry about mixing them again if you mix enough. I like to anchor. Hopefully this is focusing. It doesn't seem to be focusing right now. There we go. Man. Why? This is going to be a terrible video if the whole thing's out of focus the whole time. Okay. What was I saying? Oh, I like to anchor. I like to put a pinky of my painting hand touching something of the thing I'm painting, usually the base. So it gives me a little bit more control as I'm painting. Okay, I've got my edges blocked out. I'm gonna clean this paintbrush off. And I'm gonna get a little bit bigger one. Make this go faster. You do want to wet your paintbrush before you put it in your paint. It helps the paint come off faster or easier, and not so much paint is absorbed in the paintbrush. Most of it ends up coming off on your miniature. So I'll have to go into that little crevasse with a smaller brush. I don't know what color I'm going to do their eyebrows. I haven't really thought about that. Part of me wants to do their eyebrows in black, and then part of me is like, no, they should be whatever color the Doar is. I also looked at some pictures online from Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast, and I noticed that in their artwork, the Doar have these little gems on their chest that are the same color as their outer plumage. So I thought maybe I would try some of that if I have time. I do have to have these painted by this weekend. That's when the game is. Spelljammer has a lot of interesting creatures. I painted up some space clowns for the 2 games ago. That was fun. A lot of bright colors on those, actually. Okay. I'm going to call that good for now. Obviously, I'm going to do some touch-up later. But what I want to see is what this looks like with the white on it. Now, I don't actually use white for anything. I'm not gonna take that out. Except for light. Like, it's This is an off-white. I think it's called Mummy Robes. And it's going to look like white because there's nothing to compare it to. But there's not a lot of pure white in nature. So it tends to just be more of like a light effect when you're painting miniatures. I'll sometimes use white to dry brush something like this Mummy Robe color if I want to give it some highlights. Because it is lighter than the Mummy Robe, so it would give the effect of light reflecting off of certain parts of this color. But if I use the white for this, then there would be nothing I could use to highlight that. So if you're painting something white, whether it's a penguin's belly or the cloak of a cleric or something like that, you probably want to go with an off-white to start with, and then maybe use the actual white for highlights. It also looks really good when you're doing light effects. If you want something to look like it's glowing, you put some white right in the middle. Paint it whatever color it is, and then put just a dab of white right in the middle. Looks really cool. Especially if you can figure out how to feather it out, like fade that white into whatever color it is, and it'll really look like it's glowing. So I'm back at these eyebrows. I don't know what to do with the eyebrows. I kind of don't know what to do with the eyes because I don't know if you can see those. Oh gosh, why is the focus so bad? This is going to be the worst video ever. I don't know what to do. I don't know if you can see his eyes, but they got eyelids on them, and his eyelids are the same colors as his eyes, so you can't tell if his eyes are like part way open or all the way closed. I don't know. It really wants to focus on everything behind this. If you have stuck with me this far, I'm impressed, because this is a hard video to watch. Just trying to blend some of this belly white to where it's not so jagged or sudden a change in color, without putting it on too thick, because I do still want the black to show underneath. I want that darker color underneath. There's perfectionists out there that are going to tell you you have to have every line perfect. This is where I messed up on the underside, and I got to cover that up with the white. And so it does make it a little bit lighter than I want it to be on his belly. Fact is, when you put all these guys out on the table, the people that you're playing with are not going to be picking them up and inspecting them. And that is a truth that I have had to figure out how to deal with, how to come to peace with, because I tend to be a perfectionist with these guys, but I'm not trying to win any competitions here. I'm just trying to have a good time with my friends. Okay. Maybe we'll go to the fish. I think I'm going to do this guy with a base of blue. Probably should have done this first so the blue had time to dry. I'll come back to it. This is kind of a muted blue, which is what I wanted. I'm a grayish blue because I don't really want the focus to be on the fish. It's the Dohar are supposed to be the show. They are merchants. And they're probably selling these fish. Or maybe this is just their dinner. I don't know. And that blue doesn't want to come onto my brush. I don't want to get too much of it, but I need enough to push it around. That's something I've figured out about painting is I used to think that painting was just applying the paint to the place that you want it. And maybe it is when you're doing like different kinds of painting. But for miniature painting, for me, painting is about putting the paint on the thing you're painting and then pushing it around till you get it into the spots where you want it. It's almost like, I don't know what it's like. It's like you just put a blob on there and you push that blob around till you get it up against whatever line you want. Yep. Something like that. So let's do these. I have my moon dust. Actually, I already shook these up. I'll shake it up again. The yellows are really, really tricky. I'm going to put this one over here. It's hard to, apparently, it's hard to get good yellow pigment, so the options are more limited. And so when you do shake your paint up, yellow has to be shaken a lot more than other colors. If there's a lot of options for pigments, then they can figure out which pigments are really good in the medium that they use in their paint, and they can pick from those pigments, find the best one. But yellow is apparently kind of hard to find a good one, so you got to really shake those up. Okay, I'm gonna experiment on his feet first. See if I like it. That looks good. My computer's getting loud. I guess it's getting hot. Hopefully the noise isn't audible to you. Been working on my EQ, but it's always a process. Okay. I like that. Let's go for the beak. Beak, because it's such a light yellow, it tends to want to just blend into the white. And usually, you don't want colors right next to each other that are very similar, like yellow and white. You want some differentiation. I guess I could use like an orange for the beaks. Oh my gosh, focus. Let's try a different light here. Not too much. There's too much. And that's too little, but it's better than too much. So, that's what he looks like. I'm going to try his eyebrows in pink. See what we think. They kind of just blend in, don't they? It makes it hard to discern. I may come back with like a dark brown or something. I'm going to do some work on this fish. I'd like a little bit of green up here. This top fin, what's that called? A dorsal fin? What that is? I don't know. And maybe these little fins here. Maybe this is belly. Okay. Seems okay. There's a clump of green up there. I'm going to absorb it back in to my brush. If you get little pockets, puddles of paint, you can use a dry-ish brush to just suck them back up. Uh, I think I'm gonna try. I don't know. I'm gonna come back to those eyebrows. Let's try this little guy. So this guy's gonna be mostly orange. In my paint, one drop. There we go. Mix that up. You don't want to start painting right after you've mixed because you'll have a whole bunch of paint on your brush and that will make it'll just clump up. You don't want that. Again, I'm just kind of gonna block them out, go along this line. This guy got a lot more dark showing through. I'm fine with that. It will make him less colorful in those dark spots because it just takes over the orange. But I'm gonna let it. Put the orange down there so it's there. It'll show where it shows, but it's okay for there to be dark shadows. Let's see. Turn them like this. These guys are super glued to the cork. If you didn't watch the last video, it was just me super gluing them to cork. Super exciting. Okay. Look at the back of these legs here. And then we'll switch to a bigger paintbrush. This one's still wet from me drying it off, so I don't have to wet it again. It doesn't have to be wet, just needs to be damp-ish. Goes on kind of thick. Don't get scared. Just smooth it out. Push that paint around. No problem. That's an orange penguin. This guy's got the fish in his mouth. I think I'm going to clean this brush off. It's a little bit of a weirdness on top of his head. So I'm gonna see if I can fix that. Just pull that paint down. Ah. Okay. Weirdness right here too. If you try to fix some of these weirdnesses before they dry all the way, especially if it's like really smooth, I feel like what's happening right here has to do with how smooth that black is. And the whole point of priming is to give your paint some kind of rough texture to hold on to. It's not visibly rough texture, but it's almost like sanding something down before you slap a coat of paint on it, right? The paint has something to hold on to. And I feel like that black is not really priming as it should. It's smooth and it's letting the paint slip off of it. So then I have to go back over it. But if you go back over it while it's wet, before it's really dried, then you just kind of make the problem worse. Like that spot right there. So I'm gonna let that dry. Let's do his belly. I do have a magnifying glass that I sometimes look through, especially if I'm really trying to figure out like the details. And that helps me a lot. I have old eyes. I gotta wear glasses, just reading glasses. But definitely for this, I need my glasses on. And then to also have a magnifying glass helps a lot. wonder what the Dohar sound like. They're merchants. They speak common. Let's get his face. But they would sound like little penguin people. What do penguins sound like? I don't know. My brush is getting wonky. It's like the end of it, I don't know if you can see that. The end of it is like fraying. And now it's straight because I just put it in my mouth and licked it. So that's what painters do. I don't know any serious miniature painter that doesn't lick their brushes. And there's no lead or mercury in this paint, so I should be fine. I'm not too worried about it. I don't actually know that for a fact. I'm assuming that the FDA would say no to that. I got a little bit of paint on the orange. Got some white on the orange, but since it was still wet, I was able to lick my brush to clean it off really fast and then come back with the wet brush and basically mop up my mistake. Yeah, so this guy's eyebrows really do extend from his scalp. Um, so I think they really need to be a different color. And I don't just want to leave them white. That's not the answer here. So I think I'm gonna try some like dark browns or something. I really want a solution to the eyelid eye problem. Maybe I'll do the eyes like in a blue, and then come back and because they're pretty heavy set in deep. If I do them in blue, I could come back with the white and go over it, fix it. It's hard to paint deeper spots after you've painted the more raised spots because you gotta get your paintbrush in past those raised spots without getting paint on them. So we try to paint from the inside out, go from the deepest spots to the shallowest, which is why I'm doing this fish. Got it on his belly. That's why I'm doing the fish in his mouth before I paint his beak, because the fish is inside the beak. Okay. Let's get that green on there. So what's happening is my paints are starting to separate, which is why you have to shake them up. Right, the pigments are separating from the medium that holds them. So you gotta, even on your wet palette, you gotta like keep mixing. Let's put that there. Let's do his tail a little bit of green here. That's good. Okay, let's do the feet. I'm gonna do the feet and the beak. And then I think I'm gonna call it for this evening. I'll put a lid on my wet palette and all my paints will be ready for me tomorrow to pick up where I left off. Maybe I'll have come up with a cool voice for the Dohar by then. Though it's not actually my game. This is Eric's game. I'm just the guy with the miniatures. So I get a little sneak peek because he tells me what he needs. And I get to print them out, paint them up, and release them to the Master of Dungeons. That's Master, not Mister. Eric's the Master. That's good enough for the feet. Let's get this beak going. And the underside. Oops. No one will ever see that, but I'm going to clean it up. All right. I think that looks pretty good. I'm also going to try to figure out before tomorrow how to get my camera to actually focus. I feel like it was good for that first video, and this video I'm just, every time I look up at my computer, the camera's out of focus. That's not how I want to do it. You know what I do want to do before I end them? I was talking about those little dots on their chests. Just want to see if I put some little dab right there. And right here. On the D&D miniatures, they have them like in an interesting pattern, almost like a constellation on their chests. And I like it. I like the look of that. I'm gonna let that dry. I'm gonna go back over it where it's still kind of light. That right there. Okay. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. I'm also going to do a silver dry brush on the fish, but I'm not going to do that yet. That's kind of a finishing touch. So, yeah. Thanks for sticking with me. I hope that was relaxing and maybe even informative. If you enjoyed that, I would really appreciate a like and a subscribe. And I think there's something about a bell. I don't know what the bell does, but you could ring that bell. All right. Thanks for hanging out. See you next time.